In today's video, we're going to be doing this simple side-by-side parallax scrolling effect. As you guys can see here, essentially on the left side, you can still see what's visible, while on the right side, it goes up and down as you scroll, right? We're not going to be using any JavaScript. It's all going to be in HTML and CSS. That's right, only HTML and CSS. And if you guys enjoy this content, please be sure to like and subscribe. All right, now on to the video. All right, guys, to get started, of course, you have to open up your text editor. I'm using VS Code, but you guys can use whatever text editor you guys would like. So in VS Code, I already have my file open. All you have to do is now open up a new file, I guess, inside your folder. And the first folder or file is going to be index.html, pretty standard. And within the folder or file, I'm sorry, all you have to do is press Shift ! And once this pulls up, just press enter, and it's going to open up a basic document structure. And within that basic document structure, you can see we have a bunch of tags. So the first thing we have to change on the tag is the title. Within the title, we can call this parallax effect. Always make it a habit to changing your titles, simply because it is what shows up on your tabs at the very top of a browser. Okay, so it's just very important to change those every single time. Otherwise, it's just going to show up as document, and that's not very professional. So let's change the title. And then afterwards, we can actually just link our CSS tags. So that reminds me, let's open up a new file and let's call this styles.css, okay? And this is essentially where we're going to be doing all of our styling within it. So this is the CSS. And then now we just have to simply link that CSS to the HTML. That way they're talking back and forth. And to do that, we just open up a new tag. We call it link. We relay it by calling it style sheet. It's not really important. This isn't necessary to do this, but it's good practice. And then afterwards, we're going to then link its source. So it's going to be styles.css. That's the file. Just hit tab, and then we just close it, okay? So the way we close it, just by adding this slash, and then just close off the tag. And so now once we Control S, save it, essentially, it should be talking back and forth to each other. And now we should be able to do all of our styling within the HTML file. So very basic stuff, but it's just a good reminder. So to get into it, we're going to keep this nice and simple. I'm not going to be going crazy with the divs. I've only used about like 6 or 7 of them. So just keep up and we'll get into it. So obviously, as you guys saw within the example that I created, we did a simple banner. So let's start off by doing our banner by opening up a div. This div is actually going to be our container. So I'm adding an ID, and then we're going to name this container, and that's going to control the entire website, essentially, right? This is where we're going to style in case we have to make changes. We can do that within the container. And inside of this div, right? So inside of these two links, we're going to open up an H1, and that's essentially going to be our header title for the banner. And all we have to do is simply put something like welcome, my English, to the parallax effect, right? So nothing crazy. It's not really important. It's just to add a banner to it. And we're going to be doing the styling afterwards. Right now, I'm just setting up the structure of the HTML. And so again, sticking within the dividends, right? These two divs. Inside of it, we're going to input another div, and that's going to be, actually, we're going to add another div within the H1 tags. So essentially, you want to add this inside of this one. And we're going to give it a class of banner. We're just going to say it's a banner, just because we have to stylize the banner itself. And then inside the banner, we have obviously the header tags. And so we go below the banner tags and we add a div into here. And this is where we start adding the content for our parallax effect, okay? The first one, we're going to be calling it, we're giving a class and we're calling it contents. So simple as that. We're then going to add another div. And within that div, we're going to be adding a class, and then we're going to be calling that left underscore content. So stuff within the left side of the parallax. And then below, and then within that, actually within that same div, we're going to add one more div, a div within a div, right? I didn't make the rules up, but this is just how things work. We're going to be adding our sticky wrapper, all right? So we're just going to call this sticky wrap. And essentially that sticky wrap is what's going to give us that parallax effect. Well, any contents that we put on the left side isn't going to move once we hit a certain period of scrolling, okay? And it's going to make sense once we get into it. And so that's where we're going to input all of our words and whatnot. So we're going to get out of the left content and sticky wrap, essentially. So let's do that right now. And then, so once we're below these two divs, we're then going to add another div below that, and we're going to give it a class of right underscore content. Awesome. And that essentially is it, guys. So again, this is all we really need just to give us that parallax effect. So again, not too crazy. Really, this right here is the only part that matters when it comes to giving us that parallax effect. I've of course added a banner, and that banner is what's going to give us what a good separation between the two. So before we move on, let's open up actually a live server. I already have it added onto here. And we're going to, let me minimize this actually, so that way you guys can see a little bit better. So let me increase the size over here. We'll minimize it on this side. We'll do that. And then let's actually minimize our VS Code. So essentially this is what we have right now. So you guys can see right here the H1 tags. This is going to be our parallax. And right now you can't see any of the divs just because we haven't styled them yet. And we're going to get into that in a second. So going back to our content below right here on the left content and the sticky wrap. So within the sticky wrap, actually, so down here where it says sticky wrap in this div, we're going to add an H1 tag, actually. And we're simply just going to add some content into it. I'm just going to add my name, Edward Ornelas. And then I'm going to add a second one, an H2 tag, header 2. And I'll just input some information such as like, I'm a crypto investor / software developer, and let's say a content creator, so like YouTuber and whatnot. Okay, we're just going to hit Control S, so it's going to save it, and you guys can see it pops up on the page over here. But again, it looks pretty ugly. Again, once we get into the CSS, it's going to style everything pretty well. And then once we have that information, we then go down to our right content. And we're going to add also another, let's say H1 tag, and just say let's actually add an H3 tag, and let's simply say what I do. You know, it's like what I do for a living or stuff that I do within those contents or wherever. It doesn't matter. Again, this is just all filler. And then we're going to add a paragraph tag, okay? And right here, I don't feel like typing out a whole paragraph. So the simplest thing I could do is just simply type in lorem and then 100 and then just press enter. And for those of you that don't know, lorem ipsum, it's right here, is essentially just gibberish. It's what people use when it comes to, you know, websites and prototypes and whatnot. When you're trying to input words without actually writing anything, right? So it's just to showcase a form of what it would look like in the end design. So we obviously don't want to write out a whole paragraph. So simply to save my time, we just use lorem ipsum. It's very common. And then we just simply hit Control Save. And it, as you can see, it pops up over here on our live server. And I'm just going to simply copy this and I'm going to paste it 3 times. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? And that's all, again, inside of our write content div, okay? And once we hit Control Save, boom, all right? So we're done, all right? We're essentially done with the HTML basic structure here. So you guys can overview it if you guys would like, pause if you need to, and then scroll down, obviously. And now we're going to get into the fun stuff, which is the CSS portion. And you guys will quickly see all the changes we will be making within our div. So let's get right into it. Let's go into the CSS now. So to start off, we're going to mess with the H1, the H2, H3, comma, paragraph, and the paragraph tags. And we're going to give them a font family. Essentially, we're changing the font just because I don't like the way this font looks. It looks very outdated. And we're going to give a font family of Poppins. Poppins to me is a really nice font. It's very modern. And essentially, if you don't have Poppins in your computer, you can also just input sans serif. And boom, right off the bat, you guys can see it makes a huge difference, okay? So then we're going to go down, and then we're going to simply input H3, comma, paragraph. And then right here, we're going to add a margin bottom. You'll see why in a sec, of 20 rem. And if you guys don't remember, the H3 and the P tags were the what I do and these paragraph tags. And by adding a margin bottom, we're giving ourselves some space in between each paragraph, okay? And that's essentially what I did right here, right? Is that we gave ourselves spacing between each paragraph. So that's why I added this margin bottom. And then on the H3 tag, let's make that a little bit bigger. So we're going to go into font size. So font size, and we're going to give it a font size of 2.5 rem. See, so it makes things a little bit bigger, looks more in line with a good website. So now we're going to stylize our container div. If you guys remember, that's the very first div we added into our HTML. So to stylize an ID container, we have to do number pad or number container, and then we open it up, okay? And within our container, we're actually going to add a max width. So we say max / width. And we're going to cap it out at 1240 pixels. And the reason for that is actually, let's make this a little bit bigger. You guys can see it goes all the way towards the end over here, and it adds a bunch of spacing towards the sides, and that doesn't really look appealing. So what happens is that when we add a 1240 pixel, and then we add a margin of auto, boom, it's now going to make sure to keep everything in the center of our website, right? So it's not going to space out all the way out here into empty space. It's simply just going to keep us in line in the center, okay? And so that is what that is doing right there. So now we can then move on from the container and then go into our banner, okay? And within our banner, we're going to give it a display of flex. We're going to justify contents, and we're going to put that in the center. So essentially our words can be in the middle. You guys can already see the changes there. And then we're going to align items center as well. And then, so that's going to center it vertically as well. You guys can't really see that right now because we have to add a height of 75 VH, and boom. So already you guys can see it's starting to look a lot more like a banner. So it's, you know, so what we had in our example. So now we go down into our content. So to, if you guys remember our div, that's the one that's overlooking the entire parallax. And so because it is a class, we do input dot content, or I'm sorry, contents, yeah, content. I believe it's contents with an S, yes. And then within our contents, we're going to add a position, and we're going to give it relative. And then our display is also going to be flex, just like our banner. And essentially what flex does is that it adjusts as our resolution adjusts, right? Meaning that as things get smaller or bigger, it doesn't get all wonky. It doesn't get funny on us. So it allows us to be able to shape the size of our websites, whether using mobile or tablet or a full-blown computer. So that's what flex is for. It's very important, actually. Yeah, there's a whole tutorial on that online, Flexbox. So going back to our contents here, flex, we're going to add then a border. We're going to give it 5 pixels. It's going to be solid, so it's going to be just lines. And then we're going to give it a color of 212125. Boom. So contents, there we go. And that's going to outline the entire contents within our parallax effect. And that's going to come and play just to separate, again, the banner within the content itself. And you guys will see how good it looks once we get towards the end. So then we move on from that, and we're only left with 3 more, okay? Just 3 left. Now we're going to stylize the left side of our parallax, right? So the left content. Again, we type in left underscore content, because that's what we named it. And then we're going to give it a width of 50%. Actually, so it splits it off in half. Where's our percent here? 50%. We're going to give it a padding of 100 pixels, so it's not off to the corners, right? So padding essentially like opens up the edges, right? So you can see right here it's touching close to the edge, but once I hit Control Save, you'll see very quickly it removes it away from the edges. All right, so that's what the padding does. All right, it gives us that separation. And then we're going to add a background, actually. Background color of, again, 212125. It's like this off gray. It's not very black. But now we obviously can't see our words, so let's change that really quickly by giving it a color of simply white. We're just going to give it FFF, which is white. So now we can see our words. So it looks a little funny. That's because we haven't touched our right content yet. So actually we should probably just do that right now. That way to fix everything before we get onto our sticky wrap. So we'll do the same thing on the other side, something similar, which is, again, very simple, same stuff. So we're going to, instead of doing left content, we're simply doing right content. And with the right content, it has a position of relative, okay? So on the left content, we didn't have a relative position, but we do on the right, because it's going to be scrolling as we move it, right? As opposed to the left content, it's going to be stuck, and we'll get into that in a second. So relative, and then we're going to also give it a width of 50%, so it'll also be cut in half, and that'll center our between the left and the right contents. So you'll see it right here, more or less. And then we're going to add a margin as well. So it's also going to give some spacing between the words and the corners as well. So we're going to add a margin of 2 rem. There we go. So we're almost done. The very last thing we have to do for this to actually make it effective and actually make it work is to add, or to use our sticky wrap, okay? And remember, our sticky wrap only encompasses our title and the information that we had within that. So it's not going to affect the paragraph tags, only the stuff on the left side. So if we go in right here and we simply type in sticky underscore wrap, because that is what we named it, sticky wrap. This is where it gets fun. Essentially, we add a position and we call it sticky. That is actually a term in CSS, sticky. And that right there, okay, not yet. We have to give it a display of inline block. Oh, what did I do here? Okay, let me fix that really quickly. Inline slash block. Okay. Okay, and then we're going to say left, because as of now, it is all the way off to the corner. So we want to get these as center as possible. So we're simply going to say left 100. This is all stylistic choice for me. And then obviously we don't really want this at the very top when we're scrolling. So we're going to move this down by saying top 40%. And there we go. It is now working once we add all of that. Okay, guys. So I know it was a little confusing, but now we have a full-blown working. Let me actually just increase the size of this. Now we have a full-blown working parallax effect. I know. So it's just crazy, right? Up until the very end, it starts actually working. And that is because we absolutely need to have those that sticky wrap. That sticky wrap is what makes this entire thing operate, right? By giving it that that sticky position, inline block, and then adjusting the left and top position of the left content over here. It allows us for us to be able to scroll and remain in that position. So, and because again, it is a flex box, so we can actually move this inward, outwards, and as you can see, it adjusts to a certain degree. But that is essentially it, guys. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to give a like and subscribe. I will probably leave the code down in the description below for those of you that just want to utilize it for your own personal projects. I'm just like you guys. I went on a bunch of tutorials and I would always use all of these videos, all right? I would copy them word for word until I learned it myself, all right? This took me a few hours, so I hope I saved you a bunch of time. And again, this is all without JavaScript, all right? I've seen a lot of tutorials utilizing JavaScript, and I think that's just simply unnecessary, all right? I like to keep things very simple. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.